This here is the ultimate Bitcoin cheat sheet for 2024. We're going to be talking about some actionable, practical, useful insights that you can apply to your Bitcoin investing by looking at the previous cycles and translating that into a few key phases, talking about 2019, comparing that to 2023, but also talking about 2015 as well and the various stages and recurring tendencies in all of those cycles. So let's dive right into today's video. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward, and let's dive right into it. So we tend to see macro triangles form for Bitcoin across every cycle, and it's no surprise that these macro triangles develop prior to the halving event, which is denoted here in this blue vertical line. Before the halving is when we tend to see a macro downtrend get broken in order to enable a new macro uptrend. And this has been the case many times in previous cycles, and it's very different how these macro uptrends emerge. In 2015, for instance, we got a breakout, retest, and then continuation, and then for many months going into the halving, we saw a reaccumulation range develop, which was ultimately retested during the pre-halving retrace right over here, before ultimately enabling a parabolic rise to new all-time highs. In 2019, for instance, we broke out and never looked back, but then experienced a downtrending going into the halving, and just before the halving we saw a strong rally. So already we're seeing a strong rally develop prior to the halving in each of those cycles, regardless whether that was a reaccumulation or a retracement. And of course, the macro downtrend breakout is quite different across cycles. And even in this cycle, 2023, we broke out, but we didn't see a retest of that macro downtrend. In fact, we got something quite similar to a mixture of those cycles. So we got the breakout, so no strong rally like in 2019, and no retest like in 2015. But we got something quite similar from 2015 in the sense that we broke out and experienced a reaccumulation range at highs. And so consolidating here for a long time before finally breaking out. And now going into the halving, we'll probably still see lots of volatility in this next 150-day period that we have going left, but it's clear that the macro downtrend is over and the macro uptrend has begun. History has repeated with a breakout from the macro triangle in this macro downtrend, and we're going to be talking about breaking these phases down in a bit more detail. Right now we're around 84 days in the pre-halving period, because we have to also talk about the 60-day period where we just see a pre-halving rally. So during the pre-halving period, we tend to see in 2019 upside volatility and downside volatility, which leads into the pre-halving rally right over here. And if we compare that to the 84 days of the pre-halving period in 2016, because we're in 2016 at that point in the cycle, with the 2 months before the pre-halving rally, you can see that the pre-halving rally is a recurring tendency. We tend to see strong reversal. In 2019, that was a strong reversal from a downtrend and then V-shaped reversal, whereas in 2016, we just saw consolidation for a long time. So if history is any indication, going back to this chart, for instance, if 2016 is to repeat in some way, shape or form, then we could just consolidate at these highs for a long time, for the next 80 days or so, just forming a range, a reaccumulation range of some sort, forming this range somewhere here after meeting the highs and developing a range going into that pre-halving rally period. But if 2019 is more so going to repeat, and so at this same point in the cycle we started a uptrend in 2019, and you can see here that we're already uptrending here, perhaps we see some sort of resistance and rejection later in the 84-day period before retracing a bit. It doesn't have to be such a strong retrace like we saw in the pandemic time, But even if it's a shallower retest or retrace, it's this sort of retrace that would enable the pre-halving rally for Bitcoin to rally 2 months before the Bitcoin halving event. And then after that pre-halving rally, we'll probably see some sort of pre-halving retrace. And so the pre-halving retrace right over here is something that tends to occur only a few weeks before the halving event. So it's been that the case even in 2016, where after the pre-halving rally, we tend to see a pre-halving retrace. And what's interesting about this part of the cycle, where we are right now, consolidation in 2016, whereas in this part of the cycle in 2019, volatility towards the upside, volatility towards the downside. So what will we get in this cycle? In any case, we know roughly what to watch out for. In this part of the cycle, the next 80 days, we're going to see either reaccumulation or upside volatility. Many different scenarios, of course, and that pretty much covers all the bases. But the thing to take away here is that there's a lot of uncertainty in this 80-day period, whereas here we're probably going to be seeing uptrending price action for the 2 months prior to the halving. And that's something to really take note here, because this is more likely going to take place as an uptrend going into the pre-halving rally. Whereas here, any deeper retraces that we see, those are going to be accumulation points, because in the 2019 period, we did have a massive crash, which enabled fantastic points for reaccumulation. Whereas in 2015, we were just moving sideways, which is still, if we're still going to be moving sideways, even in this cycle going into the halving, then still that's going to be a great point of reaccumulation, because afterwards we'll probably rally as per history, if history is any indication. So any deeper retracement that we see here is fantastic points of buying and points of reaccumulation. And then the pre-halving rally, later on the pre-halving retrace in this 2019-2020 actually cycle, minus 20% retracement, minus 38% retracement in 2016. And in 2016 we developed a sideways range once again during the post-halving resistance period, so the reaccumulation period, which will be somewhere around here. Really depends where we see a local top develop, but we've seen reaccumulation phases develop, and we got two here as part of the pre-halving retrace, and then above the pre-halving retrace cluster of price action, as you can see here. So this is one range, and then Bitcoin develops another range just on top of that range. So in some way, if this is the resistance here of the pre-halving retrace, so this resistance turns price into a 20% pre-halving retrace, retesting this same level, which acted as a point of rejection and resistance here, retesting this level as a new support, develops a new range. So two reaccumulation ranges in some way, but generally this is a reaccumulation period, which then we see take off into the post-halving parabola to new all-time highs. So right over here you can see how in 2016 this range was rather clean, with sinusoidal price action towards the upside, downside, just consolidation and normal sideways price behavior within this reaccumulation range. Some downside wicking, so fantastic bargain buying opportunities there. But in this reaccumulation range we saw two sideways ranges develop in two different times. So interesting to see how, based on that, how is this reaccumulation range and phase going to materialize? Could we see a few ranges develop? Could we see just one massive range develop? Generally speaking, those are sort of the scenarios to be watching out for, and it's this that will help us in our investing going into 2024. This being the ultimate cheat sheet for Bitcoin. In any case, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you enjoyed this one, and feel free to check out the top right hand corner video for more.